Hello, my name is Wildstag, and thank you for tuning in to another book rant. Today I'm going to be covering this book, Dragonslayer. The cover art is by Richard Anderson. The author is Duncan M. Hamilton. This is not a used book rant. I bought this book new at a bookstore in San Diego back at the end of 2019. One of my family members, there was a funeral, everyone was gathered, and one of the things I remember about buying this book was I had some little cousins that really wanted to go to a bookstore, and really, I think one of the cousins wanted to go somewhere public because she was tiny, really tiny, and I'm the tallest person in the family. It had been the first time we'd seen each other really ever, and so this cousin of mine wanted to be on my shoulders and towering over the rest of the family. She also wanted books. She wanted Funko Pops, and so at the bookstore she ended up getting, I think, a Captain Marvel, a Dobby, and a Pikachu Funko Pop. I think the explanation was that they're going to be great friends together. Really cute little things that kids do sometimes. But I bought Dragonslayer at the time, but I didn't get around to reading it until mid-2021, I want to say. I had a day off and I just said, you know what? Let me read this book and just plow through it. That was 2021, and then shortly thereafter, I bought the second and third books in the trilogy. I just really loved this book, and so after plowing through it and then reading it again the next day off I had, I really wanted to read the rest of the story. So that's a good explanation of my thoughts on it. I really loved this book so much that I needed to spend money on the next books in the series. Those other books are, one of them I think was a damaged or a misprinted copy. It has some weird angles on the pages. And then the other was bought used but online. So I don't really count that as used in the same way that most of my other books are used books. But Dragonslayer is the story of a Guillaume Villaralves. He has a very French-styled name. Gil, as he is frequently called in the story, is a washed-up champion duelist who had been inducted into the Chevaliers of the Silver Circle. And what the Chevaliers of the Silver Circle do in the setting and their claim to fame is that they are dragonslayers. And his ancestor, hundreds of years ago, was one of those founding members of that order of knights. And his family was given land close to the mountains because that is dragon country. And where do you give a dragonslayer to live? You give him lands near to where he saved, where he rescued, and where, if there is a dragon that comes from the mountains, he can react quickly. But it's been hundreds of years, and dragons are thought extinct, and after hundreds of years of draconic extinction, the Chevaliers of the Silver Circle have fallen into debauchery. They are drunkards, they are whoremongers, they are gamblers. They are all manner of vices in their order, such that they died bad livers, they were killed in duels, they wasted away until Gil was the only remaining person who calls themselves a Chevalier of the Silver Circle. He is, like I said, he used to be a champion duelist. He used to be the best duelist in the land. But his wife died some years ago, and Since then, he has mostly administered his ancestral holdings while being an alcoholic and depressed. He doesn't really do much. He doesn't exercise. He has a very lazy lifestyle. But a dragon wakes up and hatches in the mountains, and this dragon is young, and it is eating cattle in the mountains, in the villages, and eventually it burns down Gil's home village. All but one or two people die, and he somehow survives the encounter. He ends up meeting a young woman named Selene, and she is an orphan, or if not an orphan, she is a runaway. She is capable of using magic and occasionally does in self-defense, but in this country, use of magic is illegal. In fact, the only people that use magic are the inquisitors, who are sent out to find magic users and kill them. Really, the only people allowed to use magic are certain secret police that the king allows to use it. So there's two stories kind of mixing at the same time. Selene is a powerful magic user, and she is untrained, but thankfully the Prince Bishop is a man that is interested in strengthening his nation's magic users, provided they serve him. And what he wants is a knightly order that answers to him, that allegedly he answers to the king, and that his knightly order will be the ones that take credit for slaying this new dragon threat. To meet that end, he believes he needs magic users, and he needs skilled duelists, and ideally people that can do both magic and dueling. You're not going to beat a dragon by dueling it, but you are going to kill it through force of arms, and it is through that his knightly order will become heroes of the kingdom, and that he will be able to supplant the king. Tied into all of that is also the intrigue that the dragon is still out there, and it is threatening other regions. But Gil has been publicly called to kill this dragon. Who better to slay this dragon than the descendant of one of these founding Dragonslayers, and who is the last scion of the Chevaliers of the Silver Circle. And so the Prince Bishop wants this dragon killed, and he wants to take credit for it. So he's the antagonist in a couple ways. He is trying to manipulate Selene so that she serves him and is loyal to him, despite her being a friend of Gil because he rescued her from a terrible situation. But he also understands that in theory Gil is going to have to do this. So what he wants is to find a way for the dragon to die, but he also wants Gil to die, and he wants his knights to take credit for that kill. And so in a way there's two antagonists in this story and two protagonists in this story. There's Gil and there's Selene, and they are both pretty even in narrative weight, but Gil is a fair bit older and is kind of like a paternal figure to her. One of the things I really like about this book is that Gil, it almost frames it like she might be admiring him in a precociously romantic way. And she is a teenager, but he's also like twice her age. So it would be kind of precocious of her to be in a relationship with him, but he keeps, and I don't think she necessarily feels that way, but the book leads you on like it might go in that direction, but ultimately, as the story progresses, and mostly through Dragonslayer, a clear line in the sand is drawn. He is going to be a guiding figure in her life, and he is going to be a stalwart ally of hers, but he will never be that kind of person, and she will never request that of him. They both have their paths. He a dragonslayer and she a mage, and they need to work together to further those goals. And then there are two antagonists. There is, on one hand, the dragon, who is symbolic of the main character Gil's family struggle. But there's also this Prince Bishop who has a personal vendetta against Gil because of an injury Gil gave him in a duel, which the injury was entirely legal, the duel was legal, and through snippets of the story, it's implied that the bishop tried an underhanded method, almost just shy of cheating, if not actually cheating in this duel, to try and gain the advantage. And Gil was an accomplished enough duelist that he could see through that underhanded method and actually still defeat his foe. So there's the Dragonslayer and the mage as protagonists, and the dragon and the political figure as antagonists. And so it creates this interesting square. The bishop wants Solane to be one of those magic users under his command, and he also wants Gil to be killed. And so both of those protagonists are at odds with that antagonist, but also Solane and Gil are trying to kill this dragon to protect the people of the countryside. And so both of those protagonists are at odds with that antagonist. And the dragon is at odds with literally everything. In theory, that dragon is at odds with the bishop as well, but it's a weird web of hatred and interaction. And really, that's what this book emphasizes, and that's what the trilogy expands on, is the interconnectedness, the return of dragons to the world as a whole, and how they are going to integrate into this world with, dragons, if they don't mature properly, end up as feral creatures, but if they do mature properly, they become very wise creatures. And so that all happens second and third book in the trilogy, but for the most part, it is about this dragon and a new threat that is technically an old threat thought exterminated, and the protagonists, both of them trying to stop this threat while also having another threat lurking in the background. It's a really good book. It's relatively new. This is from 2019, and the other books are 2020 and 2021, if I recall correctly. So very quickly churned out, but very good story nonetheless. It's not groundbreaking in any ways, except I would say not groundbreaking per se, but really good to see that these two main characters, male and female lead, do not end up in a father-daughter relationship, nor do they really end up in a lover's relationship. They are prominent figures that meet when they are at their lowest point and then grow together throughout the trilogy, which really was fun to read. It was one of those books that once you start reading it, it's a page turner. I read all of it in 1 or 2 days, and then I moved on to book 2 and book 3 when they came in the mail, and I sped through those as well. Once it gets the ball rolling, it keeps on rolling and it doesn't pause. So, really fun book, you know? Anyway, if you like fantasy stories, like some of the other fantasy stories I've covered on this channel, then Dragonslayer is going to be a good book for you. And I gladly would pay, the $18 again. It was worth $18 that I paid for it. If you see it used, definitely buy it. If you see it new, it's worth the money. My name is Wildstag, and thank you for tuning in to another book rant.